Welcome to Revenge with Luna. My mother threw a party for the entire family and made sure I was the only one not invited. She said it was an oversight. It wasn't. My name is Cora Ellison. I'm 28 years old. And if you think you already know where this is going, I promise you don't. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room full of people who share your blood and felt like a stranger? Not the kind of stranger people are curious about. The kind they look through, like your furniture that doesn't match the decor. That was me. Every holiday, every dinner, every single family photo where my mother positioned everyone just right, and somehow I always ended up on the edge, half cropped out. My older sister, Vivian, stood front and center. Vivian was the golden child. She had the grades, the pageant smile, the career in real estate that made my parents beam at dinner parties. I became a nurse. You'd think saving lives would earn you something. But in my family, if you weren't Vivian, you were second place. And second place in the Ellison household meant invisible. Growing up in Augusta, Georgia, I learned early that love in our house came with conditions. You had to earn it. You had to perform. My mother, Sandra, ran the family like a casting director. If you didn't fit the role she imagined, she'd cut your scenes. By the time I turned 19, most of mine had already been deleted. I moved to Seattle right after nursing school. I told myself it was for the job. The truth was I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. The distance helped more than I expected. I found an apartment near the waterfront, made friends who didn't need me to audition for their affection, and slowly I started to feel like a real person again. Then I met Marcus. He was a carpenter, quiet hands, warm eyes. The kind of man who listened more than he spoke. We met at a farmer's market. He was selling handmade cutting boards, and I asked him if he made anything for people who couldn't cook. He laughed and said, "I make shells for people who order takeout." That was it. That laugh. I was done. Marcus didn't ask me to explain my family. He never pushed. When I told him bits and pieces, he'd just nod and say, "You deserved better." No lectures, no pity. Just quiet certainty. When he proposed on our apartment rooftop with the city lights behind him and a ring he'd carved the wooden box for himself, I cried before I could say yes. But here's the thing about building a new life. The old one doesn't just disappear, it waits. And eventually, it knocks. It started with an Instagram story. Vivian posted a photo of a decorated backyard, gold balloons, white tablecloths, a banner that read 30 years of love. My parents' 30th wedding anniversary. There were cousins I hadn't seen in years, aunts, uncles, my grandmother in her wheelchair, everyone smiling. Everyone except me. Because I wasn't there. I hadn't even known about it. I stared at my phone for 10 minutes. Marcus found me sitting on the kitchen floor, legs crossed, scrolling through photo after photo of a celebration I'd been erased from. He sat down beside me. "Your family?" he asked softly. I nodded. They threw a party. The whole family was there. He waited. "Except me," I whispered. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he put his hand on mine and said, "Their loss isn't your wound to carry." I wanted to believe him. I really did. Against my better judgment, I called my mother that evening. She picked up on the fourth ring, her voice light, almost cheerful. "Oh, Cora. How are you, sweetheart?" Like nothing had happened. Like there wasn't confetti still on her lawn. "I saw the party," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The anniversary." Silence. Then she laughed, soft and dismissive. "Oh, honey, we didn't think you'd want to come all the way from Seattle. You're always so busy with work." Busy. That word again. The same word they'd used when I missed Thanksgiving because no one told me the time had changed. The same excuse they gave when my birthday passed without a single call. "You could have asked," I said. "You could have at least invited me and let me decide." She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Cora, don't make this into something it's not." It was a small gathering. Small. There were 43 people in those photos. I counted. I hung up and told myself I'd let it go. I was good at that. Years of practice. But then something happened that made letting go impossible. 2 weeks later, my cousin Becca called me out of the blue. Becca was the only family member who still checked in on me, even if it was just a text on holidays. "Hey," she said carefully. "I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." My stomach tightened. "Your mom's been telling people you cut the family off. She told Aunt Linda you refused to come to the party. She said you told her you didn't consider them family anymore." I sat down slowly. "I never said that." "I know," Becca said. "But she's been saying it to everyone. And people believe her, Cora. You know how she is." I did. My mother had a gift for rewriting history. She could tell a story so convincingly that even the people who were there would start doubting their own memory. She'd done it when I left for Seattle, telling relatives I'd abandoned the family. She'd done it at every holiday I missed because I was never told the details. And now she was doing it again. Marcus watched me hang up the phone. "What happened?" I told him. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "What do you want to do?" "Nothing," I said. "I just want to live my life." He nodded. But we both knew it wasn't going to be that simple. It wasn't. Over the following month, the fallout crept in like water through cracks. Relatives I barely spoke to started sending passive-aggressive messages. Aunt Linda texted, "Family is everything, Cora. Don't throw it away over pride." My Uncle David left a voicemail, saying he was disappointed in me. Even my grandmother, who could barely work her phone, somehow managed to send a message that read, "Your mother cries every night because of you." Every single one of them had gotten the same story. Cora, the ungrateful daughter. Cora, who abandoned her family. Cora, who thinks she's too good for everyone now that she lives in Seattle. None of them called to hear my side. None of them asked what actually happened. They just believed her, because they always did. I could feel the old version of me trying to surface. The one who apologized for existing. The one who bent herself into whatever shape the family needed just to feel included. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Seattle had changed me. Marcus had changed me. And I refused to shrink again. Then came the thing that crossed every line. I was at work, mid-shift at the hospital, when my charge nurse, Diane, pulled me aside. "Cora, can I talk to you for a second?" Her face was serious. "I got an interesting phone call today. Someone claiming to be your mother called the hospital's main line and asked to speak with my supervisor." My blood went cold. "She told them you've been having emotional breakdowns. That you're unstable. She asked if the hospital was aware of your mental health history." Diane paused. "She implied you might be a risk to patients." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My own mother had called my workplace and tried to get me fired. She tried to destroy the one thing I'd built entirely on my own. "Diane, none of that is true," I managed. She held up her hand. "I know. I've worked with you for 3 years. You're one of the best nurses on this floor. I'm telling you because you need to know what she did." The call was logged. That night, I sat on our apartment balcony, legs pulled to my chest, staring at the skyline through blurred eyes. Marcus brought me tea and sat beside me without a word. "After a long time," I said. "She called my hospital. She told them I was unstable." He set down his mug. "She did what?" "She tried to make them think I was dangerous. That I shouldn't be around patients." His jaw tightened. I'd never seen Marcus angry. He wasn't the type. But in that moment, his hands gripped the railing and his voice dropped low. "This isn't family drama anymore, Cora. This is sabotage." He was right, and something shifted inside me. Not anger exactly, something colder. Clarity. "I'm done protecting them," I said quietly. "I'm done pretending this is normal." Marcus looked at me. "Then stop. But do it smart. Not for revenge. For you." The next morning, I didn't go to work. I sat at my kitchen table and made a list. Every text, every voicemail, every Facebook post, every lie I could document. I pulled up old screenshots I'd saved, the ones from when I first left Georgia. Texts from my mother saying, "Don't bother coming home if you're going to be like this." Messages from Vivian calling me selfish for missing events I was never invited to. The anniversary party photos where every family member was tagged except me. And now, the logged phone call to my hospital. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Priya Kapoor, a family attorney Becca had recommended months ago when things first started escalating. I hadn't called then because I thought it would blow over. I was wrong. Priya, I need help, I said. My mother is defaming me to my employer and my extended family. She's fabricating stories about my mental health. And I have documentation for all of it. Priya was calm, precise. Send me everything. Texts, emails, call logs, the hospital incident report. I'll review it today. By that afternoon, she called back. Cora, you have a strong case. The call to your employer alone constitutes workplace harassment and potentially tortious interference. Combined with the social media campaign, we're looking at defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I'm drafting a cease and desist letter tonight. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. But I wasn't done, because documentation only tells half the story. The other half was already being written by my mother, publicly, where everyone could see her version and no one could see mine. That's when I decided to tell the truth. Not through a lawyer. Not through a family group chat. I wrote a post. Long, calm, factual. I didn't attack anyone. I didn't name call. I simply told my side. From the beginning. The missed invitations. The anniversary party I wasn't told about. The lies about me cutting the family off. The phone call to my hospital. I attached screenshots. Dates, times, exact words. Receipts. The kind you can't argue with. I posted it on my personal Facebook, tagged no one, and wrote at the top. I'm not doing this for sympathy. I'm doing this because the truth deserves to exist somewhere besides my own head. Within an hour, Becca called. Cora, your post is everywhere. People are sharing it. By that evening, something remarkable happened. The same relatives who had shamed me started going quiet. Aunt Linda deleted her lecture text. Uncle David's voicemail suddenly felt very small. And my mother's carefully constructed narrative began to crack. Then Vivian called. My perfect sister, who hadn't spoken to me in 8 months, suddenly had something to say. Cora, take the post down. Her voice was tight, controlled. You're embarrassing the family. I almost laughed. Which family? The one that didn't invite me to their party? Or the one that called my job to say I'm crazy? She stammered. Mom was just worried about you. She didn't mean to. She called my hospital. Vivian. She told them I was a danger to patients. That's not worry. That's destruction. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, I didn't know about that. No, I said. You didn't know because you never asked. None of you ever asked. She hung up. I didn't feel sad about it. I felt free. The next morning, Priya sent the cease and desist letter. It went to my mother, my father, and Vivian. It outlined every documented incident, the defamation, the harassment, the call to my workplace. It stated clearly that any further contact, public or private, that contained false statements about me would result in legal action. Defamation. Tortious interference. Emotional distress. My mother's response came 3 hours later. Not to me, to my father, in a text she accidentally sent to the family group chat. She's bluffing. She wouldn't dare take this to court. She doesn't have the guts. Priya smiled when I forwarded it to her. Save that. It shows conscious disregard. She knows what she's doing, and she's choosing to continue. Another receipt for the file. My father called that afternoon. His voice was low, tired. Cora, you need to stop this. Your mother's blood pressure is through the roof. She can't sleep. Dad. She called my hospital and told them I was mentally unstable. She could have destroyed my career, my livelihood. And you're telling me about her blood pressure? He went quiet. I didn't know about the hospital call. He said finally. There's a lot you don't know, I replied. Because you never once asked for my side. He didn't call again. A week passed. The silence from Georgia was loud. No more texts from aunts. No more lectures from uncles. My mother's Facebook went private, then disappeared entirely. Vivian posted one last photo, a sunset with a caption. Some storms teach you who you really are. Subtle. Vague. Cowardly. But telling. Becca texted me a few days later. Your mom told Grandma, She's done with social media. She said it was too stressful. She paused, then added, "But everyone knows the real reason. Your post changed everything, Cora." People saw the screenshots. They can't unsee them. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. But the good kind of tired, like after a long run. When your legs ache, but your lungs are full. Marcus noticed the change in me. One evening, while we were cooking dinner together, he said, "You look different." I glanced at him. "Different how?" "Lighter," he said. "Like you finally put something down." I just wasn't sure what to call it yet. 3 weeks after the cease and desist, I did something I hadn't planned. I flew back to Augusta, not to confront anyone, not to reconcile. There was just one thing I needed to do, and it couldn't happen over the phone. I drove past the old neighborhood on a Tuesday afternoon. The magnolias were blooming, heavy white petals dropping onto cracked sidewalks. Everything looked exactly the same. That was the cruelest part. I didn't go to my parents' house. I went to the park, the small one-off Walton Way where my mother used to take Vivian and me when we were little. There was a bench near the pond where I used to sit and feed the ducks while my mother braided Vivian's hair. I was maybe 6 in my earliest memory of that bench. I remember asking Mom if she could braid mine next. She said, "Yours is too short, Cora. Maybe next time." Next time never came. I sat on that bench for a long time. Then, I took out an envelope I'd been carrying in my bag. Inside was a letter. Not a legal document. Not a list of grievances. Just words I needed to say to the version of me who used to sit here waiting to be chosen. The letter said, "You were never the problem. You were just easy to overlook because you never demanded to be seen. But you didn't have to earn a seat at the table. You were born into it. They just kept moving the chairs." I tucked the envelope under a rock on the bench. Maybe it would blow away. Maybe some stranger would find it, and it would mean something to them. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I left it there, in the place where my silence started. When I got back to the car, my phone buzzed. "Marcus, you okay?" I smiled at the screen and typed back, "Yeah, it's done." On the flight home, I looked out the window at Georgia shrinking below me. Red clay, green pines, rivers threading through towns I used to think were the whole world. They weren't. They were just the beginning. Back in Seattle, life moved forward in the way it does when you stop looking over your shoulder. Marcus and I settled into a rhythm. Morning coffee on the balcony, weekend trips to the coast, quiet dinners where no one critiqued how I held my fork or asked why I couldn't be more like someone else. One Sunday, while unpacking a box we'd never gotten around to opening since the move, I found something at the bottom. A framed family photo from when I was about 10. Christmas morning. The tree behind us, wrapping paper everywhere. Vivian sat on Mom's lap, both of them looking at the camera. Dad had his arm around Vivian's shoulder. And me? I was at the edge of the frame, slightly blurred, like I'd been moving. Or like no one told me to hold still. I stared at it for a long time. Marcus came up behind me. "Keep it or toss it." I thought about it. Then I set it face down in the box. "Neither," I said. "I'll send it to Priya. For the file." A reminder of where it all started. He kissed the top of my head. "You know you don't need a file to prove what happened." "I know," I said. "But some stories need evidence. Not for the court. For the people who keep asking. But she's your mother. How bad could it really be?" That photo answered the question better than I ever could. Months later, I was hanging a new shelf Marcus had built for our living room. He was particular about his work, measuring twice, sanding every edge smooth. As I placed our wedding photo on it, the one where we're both laughing mid-dance, my veil slightly crooked, his tie already loosened, I realized something. This was the first family photo where I was in the center, not because someone positioned me there, but because the person holding the camera saw me. Actually saw me. That night, I sat on the balcony one last time before bed. The city hummed below, somewhere far away. In a house in Georgia. My mother was learning what silence felt like from the other side. Not the silence of being ignored, but the silence of being answered and having nothing left to say. I used to think healing meant forgiving. Maybe it does, someday. But right now, healing means choosing myself without apologizing for it. It means closing a door quietly and not checking to see if anyone followed. My phone buzzed one last time that night. A text from Becca. Your mom asked about you today. First time in weeks. She didn't say much. Just asked if you were happy. I read it twice. Then I typed back, tell her I am. I set the phone down, turned off the light. And for the first time in 28 years, I slept without dreaming of home. Because I was already there,